2030.
Saudi Arabia, the public investment fund.
It's a
There's
big
a lot of
mission.
excitement
It's
around
transformational
NEOM specifically.
change. Every aspect of the kingdom, economic, social, cultural,
The
religious.
2030.
The 2030.
This is the 2030.
Yalla, yalla, yalla.
This is the 2030 episode 57. Dr. Hannah, hello. How are you?
Hi, Lucien. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. I think I look tired. I'm looking at myself right now. I think I look really tired. So
Did you
that's
have a
how I
rough
feel.
week?
Yeah, it was just a long week.
Busy?
All weeks these days are busy and long. It was an eventful week as well in terms of the topic of the show, or at least tangentially to the topic of the show. So there's just a lot going on, and it's good to be busy though, right?
I
So
think busy is the best way to be because otherwise you're bored and nothing good can come of that.
boredom is the worst. I would say boredom is the worst feeling when you're just like, wow, what do I do? I'm not doing anything. You feel lazy, not accomplishing anything. Nah, I'm out on boredom, pro busy. So everything is great here. We're going to be doing a deep dive this week. We're taking a break from we've had a really good run of guests here. And thanks to Faisal bin Homran for joining us last week. Got a lot of good reception from that episode. Lots of people commenting that it was informative. He really opened up on the esports ecosystem and how everybody is interacting together. The esports World Cup, of course, is coming up in just a few weeks. Love that conversation. He was great.
Yeah, super interesting and just so connected, like there was not a question that he didn't have like a really comprehensive answer to. So it's a great interview just in general. Even if you're not interested in esports, I think he makes it really interesting and just a great dynamic character, like super, just can't wait to meet him in real life.
Yeah. Hopefully take him up on the esports World Cup offer. We'll see. That may be tough. We'll see. But I understand that you have some feedback to read this week.
I do have some feedback. I have some feedback about that particular episode from Emma Witkowski. So Emma reached out and said that she just watched the esports interview on the 2030. Fantastic resource for those of us following the top end developments in esports governance, which is great to hear. So that was really great. I also have some feedback, not on that last episode, but on an earlier segment that we did. So Daniel Delati also reached out and said, love your podcast. I just listened to your podcast about the nonprofit sector in KSA. It was really informative, especially since I've recently been exploring the social sector here. So yeah, very, very nice to get really positive feedback. And actually great to hear that the content that we are curating is useful and beneficial to people. That's actually my favorite part about this feedback.
Yeah, we're here to serve, and I'm glad people are getting stuff out of that. The feedback has been coming at a good clip. I have one. This is from DFA8S. Defetus. Maybe it's just a username. I have no idea. But thanks. I love the show, and I listen. Love the rapport and the different views you bring to tackling the topic of the show of my home country of Saudi Arabia. I feel like I'm getting to know you guys, LOL. So I hope I can meet you one day. Yeah, man. Defetas or DFA8S any day. He says, I wonder what you can tell us about yourselves we don't know or would not find out by listening to the show. Thank you, guys. Well, I'm not really prepared. I don't know. Do you have anything that you want to share that we may not have talked about on the show? I mean, there's a lot, obviously, but
no.
what do you choose, right?
No.
I've got one. I've got something.
Oh, tell me. Okay.
Do you have something, or I'll just go? So we talked
a
little
first.
bit.
How about that?
Okay. So we had a business meeting. The two of us. We usually, whatever. But a pre-planning episode for the show, and we were talking about a trip that you made to Africa when you were younger, to South Africa. Just somehow came up, and I was thinking to myself, something that maybe you don't know, the listeners, DFA8S. I've never been to Africa. I want to go, but I've never been. A whole continent, and I haven't been. Yeah, that's, you know what? There's something you may not know, not on your bingo card for the week, learning about that, but there you go.
So are we doing just personal things?
I don't know. I have no idea what he why he asked that or like but like that's something you might not know about me.
Okay,
I don't know.
something nobody knows about me. I actually just played this game recently, but I'm not going to share any of that information.
Okay,
But
good. Is
that
this
was
a family
yeah,
show? Yeah.
that was, no, oh my goodness, no. That was just like very like people that I've known my whole life, right? And so it was thinking about that. But okay, something a lot of people don't know about me. I feel like I talk a lot about myself on this show. I feel like you give me way too much space to talk about myself.
I should have modified that and said, you guys really need to talk a lot less about yourself and more about the topic. No, I mean, I think it's just like you're doing a podcast. I mean, there's a lot of content in here. We just talked about how many are finding it valuable, but this also has to be
I
fun for
think
us to do. So yeah,
yeah,
which we make it. Yeah.
exactly. I think one thing, so I wear a lot of hats, right? And I do a lot of different work, and I don't really talk about a lot of it. So, I maybe will mention some of my roles and some of the projects that I'm working on. But one that's very near and dear to my heart that I may have mentioned in the past is work that I've done with an organization called Johara Global. So I was just at their event today, and Johara is a network of professional women who come together to kind of share experiences, bridging East and West. So it really is a space where we can talk about kind of this whole development of yourself in order to show up better in the world. So there's lots of dimensions to it. But one of the things we were talking about today was kind of thinking about managing finances at the family level, and thinking about, for instance, if you do have wealth and succession planning, what that might look like. And it was really interesting today. It really catalyzed for me why I'm part of this network. It was because we were talking about kind of people's relationship and psychological relationship with money, and how you can deal with that and manage that and think about maybe growing it or saving it or making sure your children are hardworking and also understand the value of it. And then the way it was framed by the women that were predominantly based in the US was so different from the way it was framed by the women that were based in Saudi. And that for me was like, this is why I'm part of this network. Yes, it takes time and it takes effort to kind of show up and be there and really be vulnerable and be yourself and interact with people in network. But I'm there because I think it's really important to say, yeah, and what you said is really, really valuable. And it's really valuable to me. But actually, I don't think I could ever do that in my context, because within Saudi, it looks different and it looks like this. But the topic itself is still very relevant and very important to me. And so one of the things about me is I'm a serial networker. and one reason I do that is because I feel like we have so much to learn about how we view things culturally through different lenses, and how by coming together and talking about these things openly and being vulnerable, we become more the same and less different.
That's a good thing. That was nice. I mean, I was kind of hoping for like favorite food, sardines, like
I just came I I do
like
love
when you said you're
sardines.
going to wear a lot of hats, or that
However,
you wear a lot of hats, I was like, oh, like I've seen you wear a hat twice. Like, so that's
baseball
something
hats.
new to me. Yeah, but and I know you're not
We can go
anti-baseball
back
hat,
to
but
that. I actually used to wear hats a lot when I was in university. And so like some people would know me as the person that wore hats.
bad hair
Not
days,
baseball caps, not
like a
baseball
great
caps, right?
remedy.
Like berets and fedoras and really fun
No, you
hats.
were a beret fedora person. Oh man, wait. That's I think what this guy was asking about DFA 8S. That's the kind of intel,
They're
that he's
so
looking
cute
for. You used to be a
though.
fedora person. Okay. All right. Anyway, let's have a show.
I feel like we should, can I confess something? I was
Absolutely.
reading,
Yes.
something while you read the feedback. So I wasn't even really sure what the assignment was. Like,
Maybe I wish I'd known. That's the type of thing I wish I had known. Like like a strategic advantage. Like she's not paying attention, so I can be like, "So, what do you think about that, Hannah?" And you're just like, "What?" But yeah. Anyway, let's get to a deep dive. Deep dive, Dr. Hannah. It's not a deep dive. I told you this before the show. It's a bit of a monologue or rant, but hang in there with me. It's kind of a deep dive, I guess. Everybody knows, all the listeners and viewers of this podcast know that it's been a very busy last 2 weeks for the region. Saudi Arabia, the Gulf, Iran, Israel. Very busy to say the least. And we, with this podcast, we're not as focused as much on the region as we are on Saudi Arabia, the transformation. The story is driving it. Everybody knows that. Of course, regional events really do impact the transformation, or they could impact the transformation. And it really remains to be seen just how much regional events will impact it, if at all. The constant, the thing that remains true today as it did 2 weeks ago and 2 years ago, is the vision success. That is the focus. That's the goal. So that kind of begs the question, why is that? And we've talked in recent weeks about the vision here, and we're in the second half of the life cycle leading up to 2030. There will be adjustments and tweaks, modifications. You could use like 1,000 words here: realignment, recalibrations in terms of the vision and its spending and its goals. And that's actually been quite consistent throughout. I mean, they've been doing that all along. If oil prices are lower, then, you make more adjustments than you would if they're higher, right? It's a budget situation. Making decisions on what's affordable and what isn't critical. And also, on the other hand, what is a priority now? What's working? What can help boost the vision even further than what was planned. I wanted to set that scene setter here, and that context, thought framework, you could call it, to anything happening in Saudi Arabia. You can think about it in that lens and kind of understand a little bit more about what's going on and what people are thinking there. With this deep dive, with air quotes, if you're listening, I want to actually apply that context to something that happened this week in Saudi Arabia. It has nothing to do with regional events, yet it is kind of one of the biggest news stories to come out of Saudi Arabia recently. Strap in, Dr. Hannah. I know you're going to be like, what a transition, what a jump here, but I really will connect all this together. That is the news that Cristiano Ronaldo will sign again with Al Nasser and continue his career in the kingdom. The deal was announced just a day or two ago, and the price tag, I mean, it's staggering, and it's kind of starting to populate into my social media. People are saying, whoa, that's a lot of money. And let's set the scene here and give you the details. It's $244 million a year, $110,000 per goal, $55,000 per assist, $11 million for a title in the Saudi Pro League, $5.5 million to win the Golden Boot, piece of cake, hopefully for him. That's a lot of money. $8.9 million is an incentive to win the Asian Championship League. And then there's some other details that come with this that are not like directly related to football. Of course, $5.5 million in private jet credits, which, man, I would take any day. $82.4 million in guaranteed sponsorship. I think the most interesting thing of all of this is 15% ownership of Al Nasser, valued at $45.3 million. Call it a total price tag of about $500 million. So if you look at that money, it's a lot of money, of course. And you think, is Saudi Arabia putting the vision first with something like this? Is Saudi Arabia making, some adjustments to the vision? And is this really worth it? Like, is that money well spent for Ronaldo? I think there's a great argument to be made that it absolutely is. And I'll also accept the argument and as valid that maybe it's not a great use of money, but I would argue that it's well spent. The ROI on Ronaldo for Saudi Arabia probably exceeds the investment amount that I just mentioned, $500 million. It's a little hard to measure, but I did some kind of gaming out here on like what $500 million can get you if you're, Al Nasser, the Saudi Pro League, Saudi authorities, and what you can get in return. I think first and most obvious is that Ronaldo continues with the Saudi Pro League. That's ascending quickly, and I'm going to come back to this in a second, but I mean, that keeps things going with the Pro League, right? I mean, like, he was your big anchor foreign player to be signed in 2022, and a number of big names came and signed after that. I mean, he kind of catalyzed the whole thing. He's almost the face of the league, even though he's not Saudi. It's also for Ronaldo a recommitment to Saudi Arabia in general, living there, playing there. Now, ownership of Al Nasser makes this something that lasts longer than 2 years, right? I mean, he is now an indefinite partner in Al Nasser, and the commitment is, way longer than 2 years now. So that's kind of part of this deal. It's a 2-year deal, but it's also like, hey man, you're going to own this a huge chunk of this soccer club. Hard to measure, that value for Saudi Arabia, but it is very, very valuable. That he will be involved in the Saudi Pro League for years to come is huge. So then I thought about how much has the league grown since Ronaldo signed, which was in 2022. So I kind of looked into this and I was actually kind of blown away. But broadcast reach, there's different ways you can measure it. You can try to put a price tag on it and then kind of add it together. But broadcast reach expanded dramatically. Basically, it was not broadcast very broadly outside of the region. Now 140 countries are watching the Saudi Pro League via media deals. Stadium attendance is way up. Ticket sales, therefore. Sponsorship inflows are up. One estimate, not a hard fact here, but at the club level for Al Nasser, they're pulling in about $110 million a year in sponsorships. You can bet that Ronaldo really added a lot to that, and I'm sure that CAF is a huge part of that figure. Jersey sales, they don't do jersey sales like they do in leagues around the world. They don't release numbers on that. Huge spike in CR7 Al Nasser kits. I actually see them, and my buddy sent me a picture. He has nothing to do with Saudi Arabia, lives in New York. And he's just like, my son wanted an Al Nasser jersey, and it's a Ronaldo jersey. I was like, wow, that's next level. So it should be noted, it's not all because of Ronaldo. Like, he's been the catalyst. He was the first mover, but like, you had Benzema, Neymar, Mane, Kante. These are all football players, so not super familiar with them, but they're huge names that came to the Pro League. He blazed the trail. Let me just add to this too. Like, so you have this kind of boost to the Pro League, but in Ronaldo, you're getting the biggest name in sports globally. And he's the biggest name in the biggest sport. He has 1 billion followers on social media. And about half of the world watched the World Cup in 2022. 3.5 billion people globally consider themselves soccer fans of 2025. So, a little less than half the world watches soccer, and he's the biggest name in soccer. And he's the most followed person on earth, not just athlete. He is the number one Instagram account with 655 million followers, which is just insane. He's not a superstar. He's like more than that. Gigastar for Saudi. That boosts the league, but then you start thinking about, okay, so we got spillover here, boosting tourism, drawing attention to Saudi Arabia's transformation, making it cool to live in Saudi Arabia, whatever you want to call it. If you put a value on one of his Instagram posts, which I looked at, and also looked at like what people have paid him for an Instagram post, about $4 million per post. That would be such a nice way to make money. You just like upload a pic of yourself and you're just like, yep, give me $4 million. And then getting down now into sort of the social level, right? So every time he goes to dinner in Riyadh, it's in the newspaper. Every time he visits the Red Sea with Georgina, who also brings some value. Hundreds of millions of people around the world see it in all its turquoise glory on the Red Sea. So there's this like soft power exposure to Saudi Arabia as a changing nation. You also have to factor in, right, Saudi Arabia is hosting the World Cup 2034. So having Ronaldo as part of the league for the next 2 years, and then as an owner in one of the teams in the league, and they're spending tens of billions of dollars on stadiums in the next, it's about $10 billion, I think, on stadiums in the next, we're coming up close to it. It's 9 years they have to build all of these stadiums. Al Nasser will be based at the Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium, the cool digital one that spills over the cliff in Qiddiya. So what Saudi Arabia is saying here is it's not time to pull back on the Pro League, even though there are headlines suggesting otherwise. It's time to really keep this going. We're getting traction with this. We're seeing 650% increase in eyeballs on the Pro League since Ronaldo joined. That's massive. And then I think probably most interesting to you, Dr. Hanna, harder to describe in terms of ROI, but this Saudi Arabia has a very young population. Ronaldo serves as a inspirational figure, aspirational figure for fitness, discipline, sporting excellence, goals in health, education, youth development. These are things that, are really hard to measure in terms of value, but, a vibrant society, a healthy society is very much part of the vision. And lastly, you kind of have to factor in the cost of not having Ronaldo, right? Like, what would it cost you if he did 2 years in Saudi Arabia, had a really good run with Al Nasser, and he's out of here. One and done contract. I mean, telegraphs the wrong thing to the world. So bit of a rant. You can't go dollar for dollar on, exactly the ROI, but there is so much ROI with Ronaldo specifically, way more for him than any of the other soccer stars out there, football. Sorry, it's hard to untrain that. But when you think about this and you think about, okay, so Saudi Arabia plunked down basically $500 million to keep Ronaldo around, keep him committed to Saudi Arabia, maybe retire in Saudi Arabia, maybe get 1,000 goals, as part of his time in Saudi Arabia. As an owner of a Saudi sports club, this is an announcement that happened a day or two after there was a ceasefire in the region. And I think that really kind of like, there's a lot when you look at it that way, right? You have this turmoil, and then, hey, like, just a reminder, Saudi Arabia really is focused on Vision 2030. And as part of all the disruption in the region, it's just another indicator that they're really going forward with it. I think this is, these goals of the vision, they're not in silos anymore. It's no longer, hey, you have one department, you got to hit this goal. Something like bringing Ronaldo back to end his career to get these milestones, right? I mean, like that has spillover effects across tourism, giga projects development. It's a soft power play. There's so much value to having Ronaldo there that if it isn't a dollar for dollar, equal investment, you're not just plunking down a lot of money. He plays a bunch of games and he leaves. You're getting so much in return. So anyway, there's a lot of criticism of Saudi Arabia signing Ronaldo, especially on social media, where they're like, what are they doing with all that money to play in Saudi Arabia? It misses the sort of return that Ronaldo delivers.
I think that's really interesting, Lucien. And I think, we all can see how important Ronaldo is in the Saudi League. We can see the growth of sports. We can see how engaged people are, both inside the kingdom as well as like your friend in New York outside of the kingdom. I think last summer I mentioned that when I take my son to football or soccer practice in Kirkland, Washington, outside of Seattle, kids are wearing Ronaldo jerseys there too. My supervisor, who's Irish, told me that her son's favorite team was Nasser because I think he was 4. He loves football players, not necessarily teams, but that's his team now. And I think that is definitely, there are global implications for this. And the word that you used, soft power, I think is a really important one. And I've seen a lot of people do work on soft power recently. And I think considering how you preface this with a lot of the hard power that's been being thrown around in the region at the moment, what we do need is soft power, right? We need to look at how we can be influential and positive forces for change. And nothing brings people together like football, right? Nothing brings people together like sports. I remember I used to support an organization that basically funded like small neighborhood soccer teams to come together to make sure that these kids could get kits and could get a coach and a nice space to play soccer. And so they could come together, and that sense of community and belonging, even at that small scale, means that these young people feel they belong to something. And sports does that on a large national scale and on a global scale. And if we can feel that way and kind of align on what we love, and this is kind of what I was talking about with my Johara interjection earlier, then it's much easier to sit down at one table and negotiate about the more difficult things. And I think that, basically, yes, what is soft power? It can seem like a really wishy-washy term, but actually a large body of academic literature that talks about the role of soft power. And basically it's that utilization of your assets, your foreign policy, but also your culture for public diplomacy. And that concept doesn't appeal to everybody, but it really is, something that the more you engage with it, the more you recognize that actually it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it can maybe even break the ice and allow people to sit down at the same table once you think, oh, hey, those people are not that different from me, or those people like the same thing that I do. And so people like Ronaldo are kind of, they're kind of the glue that's holding the global I guess, arena together on some level. And I love that. And I think that your deep dive is really about football in Saudi Arabia and the Pro League at its core. But actually, more than that, it is about soft power, and it's about the role that things like sports and investments in sports and other things that bring people together is really what we need to be thinking about as a next step within the region. And I love that Saudi is playing this role, regardless of what people have to say about it and the naysayers that are out there.
Well said, better said than me. I mean, I think soft power, the challenge with soft power is putting a dollar value on it, a monetary value on it. So it's like an unfair fight when you're saying, oh, we're spending all this money, but we get soft power in return. People say, well, what is that worth? And actually, like if you dig into elements of the soft power that emerges from making Ronaldo SPL guy pretty much forever, there's actually a lot that you can kind of get into. The soft power is like, I mean, it's almost worth more than money, right? And so, I mean, I completely agree with you. And something like this is needed now for sure.
why don't why don't we think of it that way? That's how I see it. It's hard to measure return on investment when you're thinking about relationships and when you're thinking about emotions. But that's what you get with a player like Ronaldo. Like, the hardcore football fans, when their team loses, they're upset for a week because it's about emotions, right? It's about love, it's about affinity, it's about affiliation, and it's about a sense of belonging. And that's why it's important to have these figures in our lives. And I think especially when you're thinking about young people, 'cause so many young people aspire to be him, right? And actually, just on a complete tangent, but young people aspire to be football players, professional football players. If you look at statistics globally, more young people aspire to be professional football players today than they did 10 years ago. And that's because of people like Ronaldo. Like, right? He's the number one followed account on Instagram. I didn't even know that. But it's because these people are living the life, right? And you see that. And it's because of the billions that they're getting paid. But more than that, you fall in love with them, right? And so it's not just about the game. It is a game. It's rigged. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. But it's not just about that. It is about trying to really capture the energy that's positive, that brings people together, and harness that for the greater good. And I think we can look at it that way. You can look at it in so many different ways, but I like to look at it that way because I have seen how football brings people together. I can also see how it divides people, but I love how it brings people together even more.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, first of all, it's not rigged, because if it were rigged, Ronaldo and Al Nasser win every year. But
No,
that's
I
been a
think
little bit elusive.
what's rigged is the algorithm of people seeing all of those
Oh,
posts
I'm
on
sorry. Okay.
Instagram.
I was like, whoa, that's
Sorry.
quite an accusation. Yeah, I was like, I
No,
don't think
no,
so.
no.
Yeah.
I'm talking about what Instagram is feeding you and how
Okay.
social media is making sure that you're following it. Ronaldo, right? Like
yeah.
that's
Yeah, that is 100% true. And it's always, people, it's the type of thing where people always mention, like, oh, like, I'm sure my phone's listening because I get these ads that I didn't search. I only talked about, anyway, it is rigged, right? The Saudi Pro League is not rigged. Another thing to mention,
I'm not saying
no,
that.
yeah. I mean, that sounds like a disgruntled fan's point of view, of course. But I mean,
Right,
another thing
of
to note
course.
about Ronaldo is he is the global ambassador, can't talk today, as always, for the Esports World Cup 2025.
Yeah.
Tying it into episode 56 with Faisal bin Homran. But again, and like you said, fall in love. I mean, like, he's also not terrible to look at, so like I feel like, he is a true superstar, man. He's got it all, and it's and I probably didn't emphasize this enough, but like, there's just such a vibe around him and Riyadh. I mean, like, anytime he goes anywhere, any sporting event, like a boxing match, he's there. I mean, he's doing it right. He lives there. He likes it there. He's making a ton of money, so it's hard to be unhappy, right? But I mean, this is a decision he made too. It could have been, he could have gotten an offer for a lot less and said no, or a lot more and said no, I want to live there.
Yeah.
So sports, a little bit of levity. And the other thing, by the way, you mentioned there's divisiveness in sports. It's funny because it's just everything where it can get dangerous, like in the US. We're not there in Saudi Arabia with, Al Hilal versus Al Nasser, although I went to that game and there was a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a little better than, Alabama, Tennessee college football, which can get, a little bit more physical, or excuse me, anything in the EPL. Some of those stadiums get really rowdy.
And
But
here in the UK, right, as well.
yeah,
Like there's
EPL.
like a what
Yeah.
with Liverpool, like sorry. Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But like the Liverpool, right? Their moment of silence for all those football fans that died. Like I don't know. They're not my team. I don't know anything about them.
I don't like how they say Liverpool. Like, I think it sounds so weird and creeps me out. It's part of the
Liverpudlian accent. You don't like it?
Is that the name of the accent? Are you kidding?
No, a person from Liverpool is a Liverpudlian. There's another name for the accent, actually. What is it? I'm going to say it wrong. Hang on.
Can we hear a British accent? Okay. All right.
Can I do
I'm
a
not gonna make
Liverpool
you.
accent? Definitely
Yeah.
not. Scouse.
Okay.
A Scouse accent.
Scouse.
Yeah.
Okay. So we
That's
learned
the
something else
Liverpool
about
accent.
you. We're gonna learn a lot
I cannot.
about,
I can
you
do
cannot
a
do a
fake.
Scouse.
no, I can do a fake British accent. I can do probably like a fake Irish accent, maybe more Scottish, but I would never do it in front of somebody from Scotland.
What freaks me out, and we're off topic, but again, whatever, it's a podcast, whatever. But when British actors take on roles for American films, and then they just drop the accent, and you have no idea this person is British unless you know that they're British. And I'm like, so you know how to talk like Americans, which is clearly the superior accent to have.
Why
and
would they
then you
want
choose to go
to?
back because you can understand what they say a lot better, and you know that.
I can
as somebody
understand
who's
the
American.
Brits. Yeah, they can drop their real accent. They're not dropping their accent. They're adopting an American accent. Like you have to.
I know,
You're
but they should
dropping
stick
their
around
accent.
with the accent and just roll with it. It's so much better.
Have you seen
And
like Damian Lewis, right? Like in Billions. Like he's totally
great example.
British.
Yeah.
Right? Or what's his name from House? What's his real name?
Is it the doctor? Yeah.
Yeah, he's
I-
House is also British. People probably don't remember him as much as like I think listenership might be a bit younger than House, but I love that show. Anyway.
So I think the best example in the history of movies and TV of a British actor coming to the U.S., best country, especially for film, and basically taking on an American character is Jimmy from The Wire. I don't know if you've seen The Wire. Unbelievable show. But it takes place in Baltimore. It's a very specific accent. I can recognize it very clearly near my farm here, but he nails it. I had no idea he was British until I saw him in the Downton Abbey, the second Downton Abbey movie, and I was like, oh my gosh, and then looked at it, I was like, wow, he does a really good British accent for a Baltimore guy, and he's British, and I was like, what? Like, yeah. Anyway, okay, Ronaldo, Vision 2030, peace on Earth. Let's get to the news.
Let's get to the news.
Yeah, let's get to the news. Kicking this one off. Whoa. So a little more soccer, but actually not soccer. And this is not the most important news at all, but I think it's interesting. It does have to do with my co-host's adopted third home country, another thing we were just talking about, Selfridges, which of course is the historic and iconic department store chain, has won approval to convert staff office space in its London flagship store into a private members club with a terrace and a private dining room. That's the news. Yes, it is. And first of all, it sounds amazing. Quite posh. I'm sure they will enjoy having you, Dr. Hannah and Aziz, as founding members. Why is this relevant to Saudi Arabia? Selfridges is now, PIF now owns Selfridges, 40% of it. And I think, so first of all, that is they bought into the valuation at about £4 billion. I don't know where the dollar pound thing is now, but that's a lot of money. But what is interesting here is you're getting Selfridges Group with this investment, and then you have all these other retail locations, right? And then, so it's a real estate play. And so like, this is another soft power thing in a way, right? And then this news story about opening up a members only club, you have to imagine that this is going to be attractive to Saudis that visit London frequently, especially in the summer, but all year. The proposal is part of a wider plan to launch a new, quote, exclusive new shopping and social destinations for its most valued customers and members on Duke Street. That's right. It's on Duke Street. Interesting. I mean, this is a cool move. It's going to be ready next spring. The TV series Mr. Selfridge is awesome. I love it, and high recommendation. Hannah, when are you joining? And are you going to get like some member gear? What's your plan?
So probably not. I'm not a huge member club person. I live here, so I have my home, and it's nice, like to be able to come and use my own space here. I think it's great for traveling, like people who are traveling, that need a nice space to entertain or a nice space to go work. It's just not really for me, but I think that it's interesting. There are a lot of members clubs. There's a few new ones, and there's kind of the flavor of the month almost member clubs. So some will go out of fashion, some will come back into fashion and things like that. But it's not really, it's interesting. I think that it'll be popular for sure. So well done on thinking about that. I think that in general, if I continue to go to Selfridges, it'll be just to shop and then leave.
Okay. Well, maybe take a club tour, which,
I'll take a tour.
is
Fine.
not a commitment.
Okay.
Yeah, I think too, like when you think about this move from PIF, you have tie-ins to like trends in global retail and trends in fashion, luxury, consumer, behavior and stuff like that. That adds value to that. Is Soho House in London still cool, or is that not cool anymore?
Yeah.
Is it?
It's cool.
Okay.
It's cool. And there are a lot of destinations. Like Soho House has multiple houses.
All over
so
the
you
world.
can go.
Yeah.
Well, also in London, you have multiple. So it depends on what you're going for.
Okay, are those separate from like if I join Soho House Liverpool or whatever? Like, can I go to the other ones, or is it?
I believe you can, but I think it might have to do with your level of membership.
Okay.
Moving all the way back to Saudi Arabia, Michelin Guide is coming to Saudi, which is kind of exciting. So, for those who don't know it, the Michelin Guide is it's a restaurant ranking system. So the prestigious food guide is going to focus mostly on restaurants in Riyadh and Jeddah, but will include some other cities like Khobar and Al Ula. And it is basically a testament to the culinary progression that's happened in the kingdom. They are going to release the guide in 3 waves. So starting October, then November, December. And in that, it's going to be basically reviews of these restaurants. They're independent, they're anonymous. The inspectors are around really visiting these restaurants and understanding kind of like what makes these restaurants unique. It's that diverse and dynamic kind of food culture that's there. So 1 Michelin star is awarded to restaurants for, quote, high quality cooking that is worth a stop. And 2 Michelin stars stands for, quote, excellent cooking that is worth a detour. And 3 Michelin stars are given out for, quote, exceptional cuisine that is worth a special journey. And so this is something that is being led by the Ministry of Culture's Culinary Commission. And it's very exciting. So we're going to have a guide of where to eat in Saudi Arabia. Do you like Michelin star restaurants, Lucien?
Of course. Like not every day, right? Special occasion kind of thing, because you're getting a culinary experience when a lot of times you're looking for a culinary, like you're looking to eat food and be full when you're done eating. So like a bunch of foam and then like a single, caramelized like strawberry on top that's meant to mean something, interesting. I mean, that's art, but I can go to the art museum and then have dinner. So, I mean, of course I love them. What I think about this, I think there's, of all the cities in the world, when you think about Saudi Arabia's journey as a culinary destination, in my experience, from my perspective, it's really come so far to being a world-class food place. I mean, I love eating in restaurants in Saudi Arabia, but to get unbiased reviews, you still have to ask. It's still word of mouth. You can't trust things on Google because it's just whoever wants to submit anything. That's the beauty of Michelin and the stars they give out and the ratings, is that they're unbiased. It's anonymous, as you said. So like, even if you don't always agree with them, you have it's sort of like a starting point, right? And because of Saudi Arabia, it has every type of food. And, when I'm there, I usually eat as much Saudi food and regional food as I can. But I mean, the Asian food is amazing in Riyadh, at least. And I mean, the fish in Jeddah, I can't wait to see like if any of these sort of, because often with Michelin restaurants, the ones getting Michelin stars are not the fanciest restaurants. They are just the ones making the best food. So I'm stoked about it. Can't wait to see it. We're sticking with food news, Dr. Hannah. Zadok Culinary Academy has celebrated the graduation of 99 students. Eastern Province Governor Prince Saud bin Nayef recently attended the graduation ceremony of 99 students from the Zadok Saudi Culinary Arts Academy's diploma programs at the Dammam Chamber of Commerce. We've got some Eastern Province news here, Dr. Hannah. You got it in. All the graduates signed employment contracts as chefs. Rania Mualla, I hope that's right, founder and chairwoman of the Zadok Academy and Zadok, thanked the governor for his support as the Academy's honorary president, highlighting his role in advancing youth training for the job market. Graduates have joined international hotels and restaurants and may pursue further studies or start their own businesses or restaurants. Some will become teaching assistants at the academy. Mabruk to Zadok. It's so cool. You did a deep dive on this earlier, really early on in the 2030 journey. I thought it was so cool. So anyway, congrats.
Congratulations to those students. I have had their food. I have met them. They're incredible. And what Ranya's built is so phenomenal. You know, it's on the right trajectory. It's on the up and up. And they're just, you know, just such an incredible institution with a huge support system behind it of different hospitality gurus from inside Saudi as well as internationally. So I'm the vice chair of
You
the
are
international.
vice chair. I should congratulate you. What am I doing? Congratulations.
Of the
Sakura.
international
Yeah.
advisory board, but I'm just an advisor. You know, I've played a bigger role at times throughout the journey of Zedek's establishment, but really, you know, hats off to the management team on the ground and really to the chefs themselves. They're just so dedicated and so inspiring. Like, I love them.
Yeah,
I love
let's not
students. I love
downplay
learning.
advisory work, by the way. You know, it's important, right? No, it's so cool.
Yes.
And I mean, yeah, like so a lot of these people may end up at Michelin star restaurants coming soon to Saudi. What a tie-in.
So I
You know, you
spoke.
love to
I
see it.
said right. So I spoke to some students last year, I think it was, and they were like, "We don't care about Michelin. Like, we're going to create our own guide, our own standards. We're going to break the mold." You know, so they're really ambitious, these young people. But I think like getting a Michelin star would be something they'd be like, "Yeah, thanks very much. Take that."
Is there a competitor to Michelin ratings? I don't think so, man. And it's global.
Not Michelin. There's
Nope.
other things, right? But nothing, you know, you have to kind of be in that space for a while to be like the leading kind of the leading benchmark, I guess, if you will.
And also, yeah, if you're trying to start up something that would compete with that, the problem is that you have to make money. You know, this is it's a money maker for Michelin. They're selling tires, right? So it's, you know,
Yeah.
this is it's a different business, but it, you know, so like if Time Out, for example, like, you know, I don't know if I put the same level of trust in their reviews. Like, is it a paid review?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, who knows, right? Michelin,
Yeah.
you know, you just don't know, right? So anyway, cool story, and congrats to
Excellent.
Zadok.
Well done. And finally, and kind of on a related note, because this is sort of tourism related, so I think we're tying everything in together.
It's Ronaldo, the whole thing, yeah.
We're trying, right? So PIF has launched a new company to deliver on Expo 2030. So PIF launched Expo 2030 Riyadh Company, a wholly owned entity tasked with developing, managing, and operating infrastructure and programming for the kingdom's Expo 2030, which I believe is going to be in the year 2030. I'm just kidding. So it's actually, Expo is projected to bring in a lot of money into the kingdom, 64 billion riyals to add to the GDP. And it's supposed to generate 171,000 direct and indirect jobs as it's set up. So having a company is not a bad idea. And once operational, it's expected to add 5.6 billion riyals to the national economy. This is not a small sum. I think it's a very important step to really institutionalize the way this is done and handled and run. And I love that it is, you know, it's an event, but it is illustrating how one event actually is generating jobs, is generating income, and is adding to the bottom line of the kingdom's economy. So these events are not just about, you know, hey, let's show everybody what we're capable of doing. They're really about stimulating the national economy on multi levels, and this is really illustrative of that. So I love that. But yeah, I mean, do you want to tell us a little bit more about where Expo is going to be, what it's supposed to look like?
Yeah, it's gonna be in Riyadh. It's gonna look amazing. And yeah, so I mean, look, like what's news here is that PIF is involved in the expo, and you kind of think, okay, like why is that? I mean, can't you set up an authority for it? I think PIF brings a lot to a project like this that is intangible, maybe, but I mean, so like you have like PIF is involved across the ecosystem, you know, with giga projects and real estate all over, right? So like you get some sort of institutional capability with this, and you get project delivery experts. They're on a tight timeline, right? I mean, you got 5 years. The renderings, which we'll include in this segment if you're watching, I mean, are just so awesome. And we did do a deep dive on this recently, but you get PIF's ability to coordinate across stakeholders. I mean, this is like an all hands on deck kind of situation. So you get like that, capability. And then PIF is a very well-connected fund at this point. You get investment attraction, right? You get PIF as first of all, as a brand manager in part of this with their name attached to it, but you also get connections to international investors that are maybe looking at this as an opportunity for them. PIF has a really big Rolodex. So this kind of makes sense, right? I mean, it's just interesting.
6 million square meters, one of the largest sites ever built for an expo site. And it's going to be in the north of Riyadh a little bit, near the new King Salman International Airport as well. So it's going to offer direct access to a lot of domestic and major city landmarks. And the expo itself is going to run from October 1st, 2030 to March 31st, 2031. It's expected to draw in over 40 million visits. So that's exciting as well. I was just in Japan, where expo is being held at the moment in Osaka. I did not get a chance to go to the expo while I was in Osaka, but there were a lot of people that were there just for the expo, and you could tell because they were wearing expo gear. So it's very exciting when you have a big event like that happening. It really just gets everybody excited. And 5 years is not a long time, but if you think about it, like people that are just going into university can think about their role right now within kind of the expo in a few years. And that's exciting as well. So people are working on it, obviously building it now, but there's going to be a lot of space to innovate and develop things throughout this journey. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
I always like to think about the capacity building aspects of all of this.
Totally. And there's a lot, right? I'm pro expo, as discussed previously. I'm all about this. I love how you expected me to rattle off some stats about the expo. And I was like, nah, I'm going to pontificate.
It's going to look great.
Yeah, it's going to look awesome. No, but it really is. And it's a huge deal. It's part of this sort of changing skyline of Riyadh, right? I mean, how much of it is going to be permanent? I mean, I know, because that's, first of all, that's really valuable real estate these days in the north. So up there near Roshan, right? And close to the airport near Princess Nora. So I'm very excited for them. This is a huge deal, just like the World Cup, of course. So we've had such great tie-ins on this show. I'm so excited.
Is this
everything
your
flows.
favorite show?
So isn't this, it's up there, right? I can't say that because we've had amazing guests, but it's up there. And anyway, we can put a bow on it now. Dr. Hannah, thank you very much. Get some rest. I will do the same. See you soon.
Thanks, Lucien. Take care.